Hi everyone. I've been asked by a client to demonstrate how to create this certain tap element. So the client has recently purchased our infinite water tool and they are just getting used to the tool, so they're sort of a little unsure of exactly how to go about things. So we're going to demonstrate exactly how to achieve something that they want to achieve, and that should make it easier. Okay, so let's get into it. So this is our infinite water tool. Go into the settings, let's go back to the catalog and let's pick something from the catalog that is similar. Download this because this doesn't have the latest catalog, so we'll hit the download button. Okay, now we've got access to our catalog. We've got a tap down here that's similar. This is our sync mixer modern. So we'll start with this, but we want to modify this. So at the moment everything's locked down to this description. So we've selected it and now we just go back to custom. And then we can start to modify things in here as well. So the mounting type is fine, obviously, bench mounted. The tap configuration type, so this is our configuration up the top, is fine because we want a side mounted mixer. However, the side mounted style mixer is not exactly what we want, and we don't have one that's the same, so we're going to start with something that's similar. We're going to start with this minimal. And then we need to set that to custom because we will make changes to it. Spout, it's the correct spout mounting type, as in bench mounted. So sink and basin spout type. But the style, we also need to customize it. It is basically what we want, but it's not exact. So we set that to custom. Okay, connections and brackets we can leave off. Click OK. Now at the moment what we're looking at here is the configuring view, so it allows us to modify the style. If we wanted to see the 2D representation, then we go into our 2D representation and we turn on the 3D projection, and that's our 2D representation. Let's just go back. Okay, so let's have a look. 44 diameter, 307 overall, and this one we'll have to estimate. This is a PDF, so it's not to scale. I could get it to scale. Let's do that. Define graphically. Okay, so if we select this point here, best to do this always on the largest dimension, makes it more accurate. It's not going to be spot on accurate, but it'll be close enough, so I'll go like that. And then I bring this down to that value of 307. Okay, now we're pretty close to scale. Move this element over here. Rotate it. And now we can just trace. If you want to be accurate, you would put some hotspot nodes in here to mark all these points so you can get them correct. For instance, I would go hotspot. I choose my center line, bring it down to the base. That's my starting point. So now when I place this on the starting point, I can more accurately trace this element. So this last node here determines the angle of this surface. So it's basically the bisector of these two lines will give you that angle. So if I bring this down to what I think is my center point, and then I set that at the rough bisector, and I think that's pretty much right, which would be sort of perpendicular to that line. Okay, so now we've got the spout done. The next thing to do is this part of the stem. So this is the stem that you can see here, but it's just rotated in order to get it to stand upright, because it's a revolve, and revolves travel along the x-axis. So you've got the revolve going along the x-axis, so if you rotate the y-axis, which is minus 90, then it stands that revolve up. So that's how this geometry has been created. At the moment you're looking at a stood up revolve when you need to look at it side on if you want to edit it. So we go into the element and we find out where that revolve is. So it's part of the spout. So we click on that and we have a look. So spout geometry 1 is a revolve, so that'll be it. The second geometry will be the tube, which is that path that we just set for the spout. Okay, so let's go back to geometry number 1. This will be rotated minus 90, yep. So let's send that back to 0, click OK, and now we have access to the actual element. It doesn't look like I've positioned my center line so perfectly, but that's fine. We know what this is. It's 44 by 100, very simple piece of geometry, so we can actually just get rid of a couple of these nodes down here by dragging them over the other nodes and bringing that in to 22. That's correct. Did that go below the 0? Yes, it did, I thought so. Okay, let's just check this, make sure it's up at 100. Yes, 100 by 22. Perfect. Go back into the element and rotate that stem back into position. Have a quick look in 3D. Okay, and that is our stem and spout done. Okay, now that we've defined the spout, we need to go in and do this tap. We need to access the geometry of this tap as well, and to do so we actually need to go into those elements and adjust their positioning so we can get access to that. So you can see the element here, but you don't have access to all the guides because this element's made out of different shapes that are then rotated on different angles, and when you rotate the shape on a different angle, the guides disappear, so you need to set those angles back to 0 to access the guides. So you can see we have this one element here that it's got its y-axis at 0, so that's why we can access it. And it's actually the lever. So it's actually this element here. So I've measured this element and we've got values of 32 and 92, and that's 8 mil and that's 17 mil. So we're just going to go in and we're going to set up this one first. So let's go take this node out to that 92 mark. So that's going to be the full length of our lever. Then we're going to add another node in here. It's 17 diameter, so 8.5 radius. So we go to 92 tab 8.5 and add another node in down here. And that's supposed to be at 32 tab 8.5. And then this one needs to come down to that mark as well. And that will be our lever on our mixer. Now we go into the settings and we'll go to the tap and we'll have a look. Okay, there are the values. So tap geometry number 1 is our lever. So let's have a look at tap geometry number 2 is going to be our other revolve. Now we need to adjust the angle of that, this Y angle, back to 0 so we have access to the nodes to edit this revolve. And there you go. Now this revolve can be done in 2 different ways. You could sort of do it as one piece and just step this in and not worry about this curved element. That would save you on the detail of the geometry and it would be a lot quicker and easier to do. But you may actually want that specific geometry with this chamfer. So I'm going to do both, starting with the easiest first. So let's drag this element up to what we think is the center point. It looks like 52. So let's stick it at 52. Drag this element out to here, which is 73. We know this is a 44 diameter because it's the same as the other. So this should be 73 tab 22. This in here should be at 22. And then we can sort of move this little notch up to the position of our notch. Okay, let's have a look at this in 3D. Alright, we've just got it in the wrong position because we need to rotate that y-axis back. So y-axis -90. Okay, so that's the first version of the tap. We've actually got to move this pin across because that's in the wrong position. So let's go to 2D, measure the location of that pin. 4, tap geometry 1 is the pin. Oops, it's not the geometry, it's the position. So we've got 50, so 64. Look in 3D, and there you go. So that looks pretty good. It's not exact down here, so we can also show you how to do that. Now, if I just go back to the 2D, back into the element, and I go to tap geometry number 3 because I'm going to turn on a third piece. It's going to be another revolve, and I want to 0 for now. And I want to go back to my second piece and set it to 0 as well so I can edit it. Okay, so that's our little third piece in there. We're going to have to edit that. It's just a little disc. This one, we basically want to just bring back down to this first element. Okay, and that's the first piece of geometry. Now we want to grab this second piece of geometry. It's got curved edges, so let's just drag that. Okay, so this piece I'm now going to drag out to this 73 mark. 73, add in another node, 73, 22, and then I can bring these nodes up to here, 45, 22, and this one. I'm grabbing a few different nodes in here because they're all on top of each other. That's not the node I want. That's not the node I want. That's the one I want. Okay, and that needs to be up at 45 as well. I'm going to bring these ones back in. Okay, now we have a look at that. See, they're positioned a little bit incorrectly. Go into the settings. This needs to be back at the -90. Click OK, and go to item 3. It should also be on the same logic, -90, and everything is 0. Click OK. So now you've got a slightly more accurate example, but we still need to get this chamfer down in there. So you can do that also in the tool by adding this void space. So this is basically a way to subtract geometry from the element. So we want to do a subtraction, and we want to do an extrude, and the height, I'm not sure. We're going to have to start doing some rotating around to get this extrude to do exactly what we want. But let's just at least give it a decent height of 50 mil. That'll cover that 44 diameter that it'll have to cut through. And turn this on to show. So that's going to show us the geometry so we can see it as we're editing it. So let's click OK. So that's the piece of geometry that's going to cut our element, and it's only going to cut this one piece. So what we need to do now is go to the 2D, and we need to choose that shape. I want to move it down so I can trace it, but I might just do it like this. I might just go Control D, 2, bring that down. Just go like that, and where this node really is kind of irrelevant, so I can just leave that there. Now I need to go into the 3D, so if I go F5, go into the 3D, you can see that's actually rotated into pretty much the right position, but it's at the 0, so I might need to bring it back a little bit. So let's go and have a look. This void element is relative to the matter element, so that's why it will position itself based on that matter element. They're not independent coordinates. So this one, x, y, z, it's already rotated the -90, so the z is actually going in that direction. So I want to do a negative value. Yes, I do. I'll do a -25 because we've got it at 50. Let's see if I was correct. Yes, looks like I was correct in that. So that's now positioned the element that's gonna, oh actually, that's going in the other direction, isn't it? So I have to go back the other way. So that element at 55, at 44, and this element at 55. Now let's have a look. Yep, that looks like it's going to do the cut exactly how we want it. You can sort of see though, if you don't get it exact, it's going to leave a little bit of funny geometry down there. So it's probably best to actually bring this up a little bit further, just to make sure we're cutting out that geometry. This can be up anyway. Okay, so that's going to give us our cut now. So if we turn this off, see we can't see it, and click OK, you can see we've now got our chamfer on the edge of that element too. Okay, and there is the exact geometry of that product. So now what I want to do is I actually want to save this component. So I'm going to go back to this page here. I'm going to go actually forward to my components page where I can actually start to upload and edit the catalogs. So this is our assembly. We've got a unique tap and spout now. So if I go down into the tap, and I'm going to call this, let's see, it's got a name, it's the Astral Walker Basin Mixer, so I'm just going to call it AWBM. I don't really want to be using manufacturer's name when it's not something that they've QA'd. So AW Basin Mixer, and I'm going to use that name throughout. Upload, download, and lock. I'm going to go into the spout. Upload, download, and lock. Now we want to do the assembly, because the assembly is those two elements and then also the positioning of those elements. So upload, download, and lock. So this component is now locked down to that configuration, that geometry, and is also therefore available in the catalog. So when I go back to this page, I have access to that element. Haven't got an image for it yet. If you're creating these sort of tools, you could just copy and paste the image from the website so you get the actual image of the product. However, that's not something I'm going to do unless I've been asked to do so by the manufacturer. Okay, so that's our element there, ready to go. I hope you found that fairly easy to follow, and I hope you look forward to doing it yourself. Thanks for watching.